Hi, this is Bill Raymond. In the previous video, I showed you how to create a feed file that displays this really nice list of all the posts for your blog, your podcasts, your multiple blogs, whatever you might want to use it for. You can just take that same exact code and reuse it on any page you like. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a featured post that will look very different, but is going to use the same exact code. Let's get started. As with before, let's take a look at our design objectives. Right now, we have code that displays a featured image on the left and the details on the right for every single post that that page wants to display, be it a podcast list, a blog list, whatever. Now, what we want to do is have the capability, should we so desire, to have a featured post. That's going to be bigger, bolder at the top. It's going to go across the whole screen. And to accomplish that, we're just going to modify our grid a little bit. Right now we have a feed card, and that is a grid in our CSS file. And you know that it has two columns of 110 pixels in a frame. And then we have another grid called card content. Well, what we're going to do is just get rid of that second column, kind of keep that same one frame, and then just increase the vertical size of the image so that it fills up the screen a little bit more. And we'll still keep the 3 rows for the card content. As a reminder, you can go to the YouTube video description and you can clone this GitHub code, look at it online, or even click on a link and go to a live working version of this site. So, to remind you, we have a blog.markdown file and a podcast.markdown file. They're using the layout page. And then page.html is saying, hey, I want to use some common code that displays the feed. And that's our feed.html. So now we have our feed here with the blog and the feed here with the podcast using the same exact code set. So I'll close down this blog markdown file and I will collapse this so we can work on our code. So right now we just have a list of blog posts and we want to have that featured post. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to come in here and do H2 and say featured post. And I'll save that. You can see featured post shows up here. And then I'm going to just go ahead and copy this. And instead of say featured post, I'll say posts and save that. Now, right now we have a featured post section, but you know, Jekyll has no idea that I'm just trying to display one item. So now we just have 2 lists of posts. That's not too useful. So what we're going to do is come over here to where it says featured post, and I'm going to assign 2 more variables. And the first variable is going to be called display offset. And that'll be 0. And I'm going to explain what that is in just a little bit, so bear with me. And then display limit equal 1. So we're only going to display 1 blog post. I'll save this and nothing happens because all I did was assign some variables. Now we need to come in to feed.html. Remember, we're including feed.html in our code when Jekyll builds it. So feed.html can make use of those variables. So what I can do now is just go to for posts in feed posts and I can say offset colon, use the variable display offset, and then I can say limit, use the variable display limit, and save that. And as you can see, the featured post now just has 1 post and not 5 of them. We do have another problem though, and that's that our post section only displays 1 too. So let's go back to page.html, and what we'll do is we'll copy these variables. And now what we'll do is say display limit is null and save that. Now we have the featured post up here and all the 5 posts down below. But wait a minute, we have this featured post called Welcome to Jekyll and this rest of the 5 posts, and that includes Welcome to Jekyll. Well, we don't want to display that twice, right? The featured post is up here. So that's where the display offset comes in handy. Right now it's set to 0, so this post this post is listing everything, post section. So what we're going to do is just set it to 1, and it will skip the first post. Let me save that and watch. Welcome to Jekyll will disappear over here. Now we have Welcome to Jekyll and the other 4 posts down below. Now, if I want to change the styling for the featured post, I'm actually going to modify it for everything. Because remember, we have not only feed.html, we have this other file. I'm going to open the Explorer and go to the SAS folder and get our feed.scss style sheet file. Now, let's take a look at this. The style is going after the section called feed and then the div tag called feed card. And if I go to feed.html, you can see that right here. There's a section feed and there's a div tag of feed card. So what we want to do is modify the CSS file, but without touching feed. So we're going to do this with a little trick that I learned. I'm going to go back here to page, and I'm going to create a new variable, and I'm going to go ahead and assign that and say it's called display name. I'm sorry, display name. It's going to be called section name, and in the value, we'll do double quotes, and we'll call that featured-post. And I'll just copy this and paste it down here under the list of posts. And instead of featured post, it's going to have a style name of feed. I'll save this. Again, all we did was create variables. Now we can use that in feed.html. So instead of going after the section of class feed, we're going to go after the section of class section name, that variable we just created. So when I save this, I expect the list of posts to be the same because we use the word feed. I expect this featured post to look a little bit wonky. So I'll go ahead and save this. And sure enough, the section name changed for the featured post. You can see the browser's just displaying the image as long as it can. We lost all of our styling for the title, excerpt, and date. So this is just basically plain old HTML, no grid setup. And the posts are the same because we sent in the word feed, and that code is already here in the CSS file. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to include more code in the CSS file. If this were me coding this from myself, I'd probably create multiple CSS files, but for purposes of this demonstration, I'm just going to use one file. And I'm going to go ahead and comment this and say, this is the styling for a featured post. And then down here, I'll say, this is the styling for a feed. I'll go ahead and copy all this code and put it up here. And now I can change anything I want once I change this .feed to featured-post. So because I just copied and pasted the code, what will happen is the featured image on the right-hand side will look like a regular post again. So let's make sure that that works. I'll save this, and sure enough, we're good to go. We can style up that featured post however we like it. Now, as you'll recall from our design scenario, we want this image to go across the page, and we also want it to be larger, taller than this one. We want it to be about 250 pixels instead of 110 pixels. Watch how easy this is. I'm just going to get rid of the 2 columns, one being, of course, the image and one being the text. And I'm just going to say that this is 1 frame and save. And then I'm going to change the row to 250 pixels. There. We've basically modified the featured post. Now, just to kind of give you a sense of some of the things you can play around with, I do have a video on YouTube that shows you how to take the text and put it up in the image and have some gradients. So that's some kind of cool stuff that you could do. But I'll just show you a few little things. For example, if I go to card content And this is where this information, the title, excerpt, and date are going to show up. I could say background color is black, so it stands out more. Then I can come down to the card title, and I could say, the title rather. I could say the font weight's bold, but I can also say the font size is 24 points, and the color is white, and save that. And then for the excerpt, I can just leave it as is and say the color is white, and there. Now we have something that maybe sticks out a little bit more. I'm just going to go full screen for a minute here so we can take a look at what it looks like full screen. Now the Jekyll Minima site doesn't use up a whole lot of space, so it should look okay on a browser, although you might want to think about how you're sizing the height of the image, and there's different tricks that you can do to resize those. But the one thing I wanted to point out is over here on the podcast link, because we're using the same page layout in Jekyll, we get all this stuff for free here too. So our one piece of code is displaying a featured post and its own styling, and the posts with its own styling, and it's also doing it for any different categories of posts that we have. There's one last change that we're going to make, and that's to make sure that we can link to each of those posts. I don't know if you noticed this yet, but I can't click on post 3 and actually read it. I can't click on Welcome to Jekyll and read it. So let's just go ahead and add that last bit of code. There's a few things that we need to do to add the links for each one of our posts. The first is we need to go into our one feed to rule them all file, which is this feed.html. So I'm opening that up, and we can see right here, this is the area where we display the title. And it's right underneath this class of card content. And now what we want to do is add the URL. So I'll go ahead and say assign post URL equal post.url, and then we'll do our shift backslash again, which gives us the pipe, and we'll do relative underscore URL, and save that. Should be no errors, nothing really changes. Now, right now we are styling the title, but actually we need to add a tag, and that's the one that we're going to have to style. You'll see what I mean in just a moment. I'm going to take this post title and just kind of cut it and leave it in my clipboard. And I'm going to type a.post-link. And in here, let me just collapse this area. So right where it says ahref, I'm going to go ahead and do my squiggly brackets, and I'll type post URL. And then over here on the right, just before the /a, I'll paste in that post title in squiggly brackets again. So here we're creating the link, and here we're displaying the title of the URL, the title of the post rather. So when I press save, watch what happens over here on the right. You can see that the font changed significantly. That's because we were actually styling off of this title class, but now we actually have to style after this post link and the a tag. So that's what we're going to have to go after here. Now let's just make sure this works. I'll click on Welcome to Jekyll. You can see that that does work. Hovering over this turns the font black. That looks horrible. This post text got larger and it has the underline, but it's working functionally, so that's good. Now let's go over here to our feed.scss file. Remember, that's located under the SAS folder, and I'll open that up. Once again, I'll minimize the screen. And just as a reminder, if we go to the very top of the file, we have the featured post, and that has some styling for the title. And then if I come down here, we have the regular feed, and that has some styling for that vertical feed. So we are going to have to make changes in two different areas. Let's start with the featured post. So what we're going to do is find the styling section that we created. That's this right here. And we'll find the title. Now, at this point, because we're really focused now on the href instead of the title, we don't even need the title. So I'm just going to replace .title with .post-link and save that. And watch what happens over here on the right to Welcome to Jekyll. you can see that turns into a white font, and it's the size that we want. But if I hover over, notice it has the white underline there, and I can come to it and come back. And it's possible that depending on the browser, the font might have even changed, the color might have even changed again because it's a visited link. So what I want to do is just make sure that this style stays exactly the way I want it. And again, you can set this up however you want. So we have the font weight, the size, and the color. Now we're going to just say if it's a link, and bear with me here, for some reason I can't type again, color, colon white, and semicolon. And now I'll say and colon visited, color colon white, and I'm just going to make everything white here. And colon hover, and we'll make that color white. There we go. And I will also save that. And so that looks fine. You know, when I mouse over, I see white still, everything's fine. However, there is one little problem, and that's that I still get that underline. I don't want that. So to get rid of that, I do one more style element, and that's text-decoration, and I'll say none, and save that. So now when I look at the website over here, and I hover over, you can see there's no underline. But do notice that it's still down here because we haven't even touched the styling for this other feed style. So what I'm going to do is just copy the .post link. That's going to be the easiest way to do that. And I'll scroll down and I will find the styling down here for the feed and see we have .title. I'm just going to remove that and paste in .post link and save it. Now what I did is I just made it bold and white, so it is a link. I can click on it, but it's still using that old style. So let's just go ahead and make this 14 points, and we'll make the color black, the visited, the link color black, the visited color black, the hover color black, and we'll keep text decoration as none and save that. And now you can see our posts are looking pretty good. If I hover over it, I'm not getting any of those little links. And if I click on it, I can still get into the post. So good, that's it. That's how we have defined all of the styling for this feature. Let's also just check to be sure that our podcast area works. So I'll go ahead and click on podcast. And sure enough, we have the white, bold, larger font on the featured post, and we have just the black, bold font here on the post list, the feed list. These are exactly the same because the blog and the podcast feeds are the same. So that's good, and I can just go ahead and click and make sure that these posts do in fact link to what I said they would, and they do. At this point, we're starting to wrap things up, and I do want to make one change. There's a little bit of a bug in the code that we should address. So I'm going to go to the Explorer, and I'm going to go to page.html. And see, we have this featured post, and then we assign these variables, and then we include the feed.html. Well, here's the word featured post up here, and then we have this one down here, posts, and that's this text. But what if there are no posts? What if there's no featured post? Well, then we don't want to display anything. So what I'm going to do is grab this whole block of text and move that into the if statement. I'm going to do the same thing down below. Grab the whole block of text, including the heading, and put that into the if statement and indent it. Now, in order for this to even get started, though, we do need the feed type. So where we assign the feed type, that's the only thing that's going to go above the if statement. So I'll just go ahead and move that out. I'll do the same thing down here. I'll take this feed type line and move that up here as well, and then just save. And we shouldn't have any change happen on our site. And of course, you see, we do not. The good news, though, however, is if there are no posts, we're not going to get this text here that says featured post. And of course, we'll speed up the rebuild of the site because we're not assigning all these unnecessary variables. So the last thing that we want to do is go ahead and move all of our code from the unified feed to the master branch. Now in a follow-on video, I'm going to show you some other tips and tricks for how to use this capability. However, for now, we can basically say this is done. So the first thing I'm going to do is do my Command-Shift-P and Command-Shift-P, and then I'll go ahead and commit the changes, and I'll just say added feed.html and underscore feed.scss to support a unified feed and featured post functionality, something along those lines. And now I'll just go ahead and check out to the master branch. So let me do that. So that's a Command-Shift-P, checkout to master, and this is your main line, whatever you happen to name it. Mine happens to be named master. And you can see that the code that we wrote isn't in here right now. That's because we need to bring the code from the previous branch into this branch. So now I'll do my Command-Shift-P, and I'll say merge branch, and then I'm going to choose the unified feed branch. And now all of our code should be over here, and if I come back to the browser and refresh, there, I have my blog, I have my podcast, I have all the formatting, and the links work, and we even have our placeholder image displayed for this welcome to Jekyll. So I think we're good now. Now you can just use this throughout any page that you want. And to do that, just make sure that you go in to the layout that you are looking to add the code to, and then just do this include section along with assigning the proper variables. At this point, I am done with the training video. However, I am creating another tips and tricks video, and that will be the final part of this series of featured images, unless of course I decide to add more. But you can see here on my website, I have the featured post for the podcast and the featured post for the blog. And I'm going to show you how to do that in that tips and tricks video, along with a few other little things. Thank you for watching this video. If you want more like this, please like, comment, and click the bell to support my channel.